West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
In our politics lead, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy slammed today as, quote, an insurrectionist in a suit and tie. That coming from House Intelligence Committee Chairman Democrat Adam Schiff, who's part of the House Special Committee investigating the deadly insurrection. 4 people in Trump's inner circle have already been summoned to testify under oath. Steve Bannon says he's not going to show up. Joining us now, CNN's Paula Reed. Paula, what's going to happen to those who decide to not comply with congressional subpoenas?
Well, Jake, according to Schiff, people who don't cooperate could go to jail. He says people who don't observe their subpoenas are going to be referred for criminal contempt. And the committee is prepared to urge the Justice Department to prosecute anyone who refuses to comply with subpoenas from the panel. Now, there are some signs of what could potentially be progress. Schiff said today the committee is engaging with lawyers for former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and former Pentagon official Kash Patel to try to secure their testimony. But as you noted, longtime Trump advisor Steve Bannon has signaled he will not appear until a judge resolves questions about executive privilege. Now, Bannon was not part of the executive branch at the time in question, and his blanket refusal to cooperate is unlikely to hold up. Now, Bannon is scheduled to appear for a deposition on Thursday. And if he does indeed make good on his threat not to show, just how fast could a criminal referral happen? Well, let's take a listen.
Days, weeks, months in terms of when the criminal referral would come?
Well, it will come very fast. If people refuse to cooperate and have no basis for the refusal, it will come very fast.
And interestingly, Schiff noted that unlike the past 4 years, Democrats are now, of course, in charge of the House and the Justice Department. While Trump was in office, it was a lot easier for advisors like Bannon to get away with obfuscation because Attorney Generals Sessions and Barr would not pursue criminal contempt. But now the decision on whether to pursue proceedings will go to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Now, Schiff would not comment on whether the team has already started drafting a criminal referral for Steve Bannon, but it is expected that the committee will wait at least until the end of the week after the deadlines have passed before pursuing any additional recourse against any witnesses who don't show up.
Well, Paula, tomorrow also is a key deadline for other subpoenas, right?
That's right, Jake. Trump advisors are not the only ones who have received subpoenas. Tomorrow's a deadline for a group of people associated with the January 6th rally to turn over requested documents. Multiple sources tell CNN that several of those people intend to comply, but the committee has warned that anyone that does not could face consequences up to and including criminal contempt.
All right, Paula Reed, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Also in our politics lead today, new details on the role played by a key House Republican in spreading Trump's big lie. A new Senate report into January 6th zeroes in on Trump ally and Pennsylvania Republican Scott Perry. He is a promoter of baseless election lies. He has connections to Stop the Steal rallies. Democrats on the Judiciary Committee call this little-known congressman, who represents the Harrisburg area, a critical player in Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Perry went so far as to vote to disenfranchise millions of his fellow Pennsylvanians on the day of the insurrection. And as Sarah Murray reports for us now, Senate Democrats say further investigation is needed to probe the full scope of Perry's involvement in the run-up to that deadly day.
As a Pennsylvania congressman trumpeted baseless claims of election fraud.
Oftentimes they say, well, there's not enough to overturn the election. First of all, we don't know how much there is.
Donald Trump was lapping them up. The president was saying that these local officials, or I guess in Scott Perry's case, a federal official, had all kinds of information about all kinds of fraud and problems and things that had impacted the election. Former Associate Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue told the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now the 5-term congressman and Army veteran is facing scrutiny as new details emerge about his role in Trump's plot to overturn the 2020 presidential election results.
Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. Scott, thank you.
Perry has said he's unaware of any GOP lawmakers playing a role in the Capitol insurrection.
I don't know of any. We're here and open for the investigation. And if people are culpable, they need to be, justice needs to prevail in that regard.
But a report from a Democrat-led Senate panel says Trump allies, including Perry, have particularly notable ties to January 6th, and these ties warrant further investigation.
How does the president incite an attack that was pre-planned and already underway before his speech concluded?
And the House Select Committee investigating January 6th wants phone records of several lawmakers, including Perry.
Jeff Clark.
Perry has admitted introducing Trump to Jeffrey Clark, who led the Justice Department's Civil Division. Clark tried and failed to press other top DOJ officials to announce election fraud investigations in battleground states and attempted a near coup of Justice Department leadership.
Jeffrey Clark became Donald Trump's big lie lawyer.
The same day Trump told DOJ officials to just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
Trump dispatched Perry to convince Donahue the election had been stolen. Perry called Donahue. POTUS asked him to call, according to notes Donahue provided to the Senate panel. According to Donahue, Perry talked up Clark, effectively saying, Jeff Clark is great. He's the kind of guy who could really get in there and do something about this. And asked for Donahue's email, saying, can I send you stuff? We've got a lot of evidence. He sent a document of debunked claims like this one.
Over 205,000 more votes were cast in Pennsylvania than people who voted in the November election.
Claims Perry clung to as he objected to the 2020 election results just hours after rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol.
Sadly, but resolutely, I object to the electoral votes of my beloved Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
An objection he still stands by as he continues to cast doubts on the election.
Would you vote the same way now?
I absolutely would. It's not about President Trump. It's not about President Biden. It's about the process.
Now, it's still unclear whether the House Select Committee is going to want to talk to Scott Perry. We, of course, reached out to his office with a variety of questions, asked them for comment. Jake, they didn't get back to us.
It is Wednesday, the 13th of October of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? Will no one? Okay, well, Steve Bannon is still on the loose. It's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, do you remember back, I believe it was during Bushco, when there was a group of Quakers who were going to protest? I'm trying to think where it was. Was it in Pennsylvania? I'm trying to think, but these Quakers were staying at some apartment or motel or something, and federal marshals along with SWAT arrested them because I guess they were going to be nonviolent terrorists or something. But they carted them away right now. I know it wasn't necessarily because they were defying a congressional subpoena, but what were they doing? And they still got carted away. But Steve Bannon, who attempted to start a fascist university in Italy and was in the midst of finalizing the papers on the purchase of this not weird, but it was just weird that he was doing it, but a castle And he's going to turn that castle into a mecca, sorry for the mixing of metaphors, a mecca of fascism. Everybody has to turn to Mecca. So, but get this. The fascists in Italy said, man, that's way too fascist for us. Get the hell out of here. And they moved to, they being the Italian government, moved to make sure that Steve Bannon wasn't there to make their fascism even more fascist, because even the fascists didn't want it to be that fascist. And that says something, since Italy is the birthplace of fascism. Whew. The only difference between Italy and Germany is that Mussolini made up fascism just out of his own being. He said, hey, this could work. And Hitler modeled Nazism pretty much on the United States white supremacist movements and eugenicists, which kind of worked hand in hand. All right. So, when you're too fascist for the fascist, I think that would say something. It's not a both sides argument. Yeah, well, we're socialists. Yeah, I guess if Eisenhower was a commie, we'd be socialists, maybe. Jeez. I don't know. Tell it to the founding fathers. Tell it to anybody. It's everything's got to be me. Me. All right. Well, how about this? You're helping yourself when you help others. If you're going to be selfish about it, everything has to be transactional. Everything. So, what is going on in the world? Well, I should update on my little tete-a-tete with Facebook. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if these are coincidences. I don't know if somebody in Facebook saw something and thought, maybe, I don't know, this is getting a little untoward, especially since there was a 60-minute special about how Facebook just lets the hate go, and then they get rid of the victims. Blame the victims for the hate. Oh, you responded. So you're making it into a tense conversation, am I? Well, I had taken a screenshot of these, what would you call them? Trolling, stalking DMs from this bully who somehow he's able to report that other people who respond to them are the real bullies. Now, mind you, his profile picture on his Facebook page is ostensibly him. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else. I don't think it's stock footage. I've looked. It's purportedly him. But he's wearing a weird sort of death mask, skeleton type mask. And this was before the pandemic, by the way. Okay? Before the pandemic. And he's holding up a sizable piece of semi-automatic weaponry. Fully automatic weaponry. Has kind of a square look to it, with the muzzle sticking out of it. But it's seems like it would be rather formidable, and I think that's the point. And this guy's in everybody's business, and he's right up in it. And as soon as you say, "Hey, back off, mofo," you will be reported for harassment and bullying. And for some reason, no matter how I went on and on and on yesterday, for some reason, Facebook does what I call the basketball rule of justice. And that is, if you react to the foul on you, you will be called for a foul. It's always the person who reacts second, or reacts. So it's not the person who perpetuates the foul, who actually does the foul. It's when you react to it and you are punished. In other words, you punish the victim. Okay? You're supposed to take it. And if you can't take it, you'll be called for a foul. And this guy knows that. He knows the algorithm is that. And he would get into my DMs. I would never respond. I guess people can do it as a request to sort of, twist the knife in and gloat. And okay, maybe I want to play by a much more benign set of rules. I don't want to do the tit for tat. But I got fed up. So I screenshotted the guy's DM, put it on other social media platforms. Oops, did I have his name in there? I hope that's not a violation of terms of service. But I'm not sure if that's really his name. So am I really exposing him? Anyway, he seems to be getting away with it. Be nice to be able to get away with it myself on occasion. So I just screenshotted this vile, homophobic type rant or gloating message to me, tagged Facebook on, Twitter. I'm sorry, that's where I put it. And not long after that, I noticed that that DM had been deleted with a prompt from Facebook saying, if you want to report these kinds of things, this is how. Well, that would have been nice to have that readily available before I did a screenshot and put it on Twitter. Not that Facebook would do anything. I did file a appeal with their oversight board. And as I mentioned yesterday, their oversight board is really attending to much more loftier considerations in the bigger scheme of things rather than, the microscopic personal BS that I am going under. Though I got to tell you, the microscopic BS that I'm subjected to is part of a whole. It's the same effort that is to drive election officials who know how to do their jobs out of their jobs. It is the move to drive school board members who believe in science off the school board and supplant them with, flat earthers. What else are they? So get rid of as many, I don't know, am I a rational voice? I like to think so to a degree. Yeah, I can be irrational, but there's still a part of me that says, hey, you're being irrational. And stop it. The other side says, hey, maybe you can use this irrationality to capitalize on somebody else's defense mechanisms while they're weak. That's when you attack. So, it's not both sides. But I got fed up. You want to play a game? You got the rules that you know that you can, twist and bend? Let's see how it goes. So the oversight board, I made that appeal, but then I noticed, after I had posted the screenshot of this guy's vile DM gloating about getting me suspended again, I got a notice from Facebook that I have multiple restrictions, and I'm all, what the hell? So what the multiple restrictions are is actually not as bad as I anticipated. And in fact, the initial suspension of 30 days, which I've been subjected to before, last year I was suspended for almost 3 months out of the year. In fact, it was more than that. Yeah, it was more than 90 days. Actually, it was way more. So almost half of the year I was suspended by this guy. And he had some cohorts too, but I'm wondering if the cohorts are him. Anyway, the modification, there was actually a modification on the 30-day suspension. I am indeed suspended from 30 days from participating in groups, which isn't really a hard thing to do because they are hate groups, and I hate groups. It's just that I thought it was sort of like my duty to go into these groups that had been taken over by the Nazis, because they weren't always like that. These Nazis came in right around the time of Trump. It was actually right around the time of Malheur, which was the rise of Trump. It came in hand. And these Nazis, we didn't call them Nazis then, but that's what it's turned out to be. That's when they started taking over all these community Facebook pages. So, I guess I could care less about the groups, but I did think it was my civic duty to go in there and give a countervailing opinion and let people know that, hey, it's not all crazy here. But, of course, they want it to be all crazy, and if you're not their kind of crazy, you're out, at least for 30 days. So, okay, fine. But my suspension of 30 days to post and comment has been reduced to 7. We'll see if that's true, because this particular fellow has also gamed the system that as soon as one suspension is up, another one takes its place. Before you even had a time to post, he'll pick out something before that you said and just say, this is bullying and harassing, and Facebook always agrees. It doesn't matter what it is. I could say, go ride a bike, and that's considered to be bullying and harassing, literally. And I will be suspended. Go ride a bike. After this fellow says, suck my C, you homo. Report that. And Facebook says, oh, no, that doesn't violate our terms of use. Respond and tell the guy to go ride a bike. Apparently that is some sort of... Or how about this? I'm going to kick your ass, and then when you respond, okay. I was suspended for saying okay, kick my ass. Because I'm perpetuating violence. What? I'm just... You can't disagree and you can't agree. What kind of... well, you know how it is. That's what I mean by gaming the algorithm. I didn't mean to go on and on and on about Facebook again, damn it. I know I should just delete it. But you know my reasons for not deleting it as such. I did make mention in a public forum and to the oversight board, though they haven't seen it. But I did make mention that, this guy is actually preventing me from updating my mom's progress as she recuperates from COVID that we got from anti-vax people here in Southern Oregon. And this guy is anti-vax to an anti-mask, except for when he's wearing it for a gun shield or, blast shield for his guns. He's fine wearing a mask then, but, to wear a mask to help other people? Oh, no, can't do that. That's communism. Yeah, it is. But, you know how it goes. We all know how Facebook works, but it's still, in some ways, a convenient way to communicate with far-flung family and friends. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't make everything so public, but hey, somebody's got to punch the Nazis. Which actually, you know what? We're running out of time here, but that does remind me that there's been an update on Daily Kos about their rules of the road. And so you can't call someone a worm, things that would denigrate someone as a human. Or, and I don't know, I don't necessarily have these kinds of discussions on Daily Kos. But there's also a rule about perpetuating violence. Even if it's an embellishment, hyperbole. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that if I say punch a Nazi, that will be literally taken to go and punch someone who you think is a Nazi? Punch a Nazi is a term of art. It means many things. It means suing the Nazis like Metzger so that they don't have property in which to get loans on to further their Nazi endeavor and kill black men on Portland streets. Punching a Nazi is making sure that when someone stands up at a school board meeting and they say, oh, well, this is not the Nazi symbol. This is this little, like, okay thing with my forefinger and thumb. That's not a sign of Pepe the Frog. No, it's the circle game. Punching the Nazi is getting up and saying, no, it's the Pepe the Frog fascist symbol. Stop trying to be cute. That's punching a Nazi. I could go on. So I guess I better not say punch a Nazi on Daily Kos because that might be hate speech. I don't know. I'd like to have that cleared up. We'll find out. What's on the curated part of this salon that we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we start off in the Bistro Cafe part of it? Well, at the top, of course, a Senate report does shine a light on the role GOP Representative Scott Perry from Pennsylvania played in Trump's insurrection plot. We're not talking about overturning an election. We're talking about an insurrection. When they were storming up the steps. And once an elected or electeds have been exposed to be involved, it's actually an insurgency, isn't it? Indeed. On the rest of the menu, speaking of Trump, you know, he has a long and sordid history of mysterious fires at his properties. And there's 7 just in the time he was president. And I got to tell you, dozens, if not more, from the time before. Interesting. I wonder why. Insurance involved? Maybe. The House GOP blames the worker shortage on unemployment benefits that expired over a month ago. You know, time is fungible. And Montana Democrats filed a lawsuit against a law that criminalizes voter registration drives on college campuses. Criminalizes it. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where European Central Bank Governing Council member Peter Kazimir has been charged with bribery, but of course he denies any wrongdoing. None. And a well-respected Congolese journalist has been granted a provisional release after a spurious terrorism probe was dropped. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Oh my, I have gone on such a long time. I guess we'll just have to abbreviate the usuals. But do check out our chat room. It's monitored by Kelly Lincoln. She and Ricky just finished Netroots Nation, so stay tuned for Netroots Nation content in the weeks ahead. If you would look across the page to our Patreon site and consider becoming a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it would really help us pay our bills, so please do consider that. You know, you could send us the equivalent of what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, and that really puts a big dent in what we have to pay just to keep the station going, let alone get software and hardware. Jeez, machinery. Never stops. But thank you for your generosity. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Allison Green of the DC Report, by way of Raw Story, of course, because that's David K. Johnson's outfit, and they do some fantastic investigative work, this being part of it. And she does bring us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Last September 11th, Donald Trump skipped the commemorative 9/11 events and instead posed for photo ops in Manhattan with first responders. Many did not know he had a lot for which to personally thank firefighters because just hours earlier, 7 local firehouses in upstate New York had battled a blaze at one of Trump's properties. Trump, who we all know became known as a faux reality television star by regularly throwing out the phrase, "You're fired," seems to have had a serial loser's bad luck where fires are concerned. Trump's properties sustained at least 7 fires since he became president in 2017. There were other fires that date to before he assumed office, and his string of loser luck included, get this, a 1989 helicopter crash, the only one of its kind, that killed 3 Trump casino executives whose lives Trump had insured for, he said at the time, for $35 million. Fire Chief John Fogarty said one 1982 blaze was definitively, absolutely, positively arson, but 7 hours later, Deputy Fire Commissioner John Mulligan declared it accidental. Well, they now give us a catalog of the various fires that have occurred at Trump's properties over the last few years. This is not counting the decades of fires at his properties that just seem to mysteriously pop up. But in Hudson Valley in 2021, investigations are ongoing after a 3-alarm fire broke out on September 10th at a barn on Trump's private 300-acre, 18-hole Trump National Golf Course, Hudson Valley in Dutchess County, New York, about 130 miles north of Manhattan. On September 14th, the local East Fishkill Fire District Chief Frank Lacalamelita said, I butchered his name, but excuse me, all I know is that it's definitely not suspicious. It's not like, hey, listen, someone did it. It's not like that at all. The place has tons of cameras. There was nobody around. There was nothing suspicious at all, except for the fact that all those security cameras mysteriously didn't work all at the same time. Isn't that weird? One would think that was weird. I do. It took about 2 hours for 70 firefighters from at least 7 local firehouses to extinguish the blaze. Firefighters found the 50-foot by 100-foot barn structure that houses golf carts and their charging system engulfed in flames. Well, I guess a battery could have heated up a little bit too much. You just never know. The first responders finally cleared from the scene just before 1 a.m. on September 11th. Later that day, Trump made a surprise visit to a New York City firehouse to make brief remarks and pose for pictures with 9/11 responders on the 20th anniversary of the Twin Towers terrorist attacks. There did not appear to be any mention of his own fire hours earlier. New York City, January 2018. A fire broke out on the Trump Tower roof in Manhattan. A New York Fire Department spokesperson referred to it as a quick and easy and routine electrical fire. Well, why was there an electrical fire in a substandard high-rise that Trump owns? Well, maybe. In New York City in April of 2018, one resident was killed and 3 people were injured on April 7th of that year after an explosion on the 50th floor of Trump Tower. 6 firefighters were injured battling the 4-alarm fire. Fire Commissioner Daniel Negro noted that the Trump Tower upper floors and the residential floors are not sprinklered. The resident who died, Todd Brassner, age 67, had tried to sell his $2.5 million condo, but after Trump became president, there were no buyers. Rents plummeted. In the 58-story concrete tower, the price fall began when Trump declared his candidacy in June of 2015. The commissioner said the blaze was a very difficult fire, even though most of the damage was contained in Brasner's apartment. 6 firefighters sustained minor injuries, but the lack of other injuries or damage seems incredibly lucky, as the smoke alarms didn't function the night of the fire. Some residents complained that the building did not announce there was a fire, and they failed to say to evacuate. One resident, Dennis Shields, a boyfriend of Bethany Frankel of the Real Housewives faux reality television shows, reported that he learned about the fire only because of a text from a childhood friend, Michael Cohen. You know, that Michael Cohen, who had been Trump's longtime attorney. Shields said that Cohen texted me and he said, "Are you in the building?" And I texted him back, "Yes." And he said, "You better get out. There's a fire." Sprinklers were not required when Trump's towers were built in the early 80s. However, in 1999, then Mayor Rudy Giuliani's administration pushed for legislation to require older buildings to retrofit with sprinklers. Trump was among the real estate developers who successfully lobbied against adding sprinklers in existing New York high-rises, including Trump Tower. As enacted in 1999, the legislation required retrofitting high-rises with sprinklers only when renovations totaled 50% or more of the building's value, effectively eliminating the requirement except when a high-rise is gutted and rebuilt. Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays is out of the American Independent by Josh Israel. House Republicans are still blaming the number of unfilled jobs on President Joe Biden's emergency unemployment benefits, even though the relief payments ended more than a month ago. The GOP minority on the House Small Business Committee yesterday, Tuesday, tweeted an analysis by the National Federation of Independent Business, a right-wing lobbying group, noting that small businesses are still struggling to fill job openings. New, this tweet says, a record 51% of small business owners reported job openings they could not fill in September. Biden has paid people to stay home for months, creating a job crisis, a labor crisis. Make no mistake, reckless Democrat spending policies are crushing Main Street USA. Wow, that's quite a tweet. Other House Republicans have also blamed the September hiring pace on the administration giving too much aid to those out of work during the pandemic. Oh, let them suffer. Between vaccine mandates and incentivizing millions of Americans to stay home, President Biden's policies are forcing Kansans out of work and killing our economy. Kansas Representative Jake LaTurner wrote on Friday, after the Bureau of Labor Statistics released a report indicating the country added 194,000 jobs just last month. According to the BLS Gov, there were almost 11 million jobs open in the U.S., said Texas Representative Michael Burgess. Maybe it's time for Congress to stop paying people to stay at home. There's only one problem with that argument. The programs in question, which Republicans have blamed for incentivizing Americans to stay at home, no longer exists. Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan gave states the option of offering a temporary $300 a week federal supplement to their unemployment benefits and extending unemployment insurance coverage period. Republicans decried the move, insisting it would encourage people not to work, and several GOP-controlled states opted to end the $1,200 monthly bonuses early. I got to tell you, no one is accumulating generational wealth on $1,200 a month of unemployment insurance. Please. Now, nationally, the programs all expired at the beginning of September. There's little evidence that the benefits were actually a significant factor in people remaining out of the workforce. Multiple analyses found that states that opted to cut the safety net program early saw no statistical boost in employment over states that did not. The benefits did, however, keep an estimated 5.5 million Americans out of poverty, according to Census Bureau data. According to the September data, nearly 4 million more people have jobs now than when Biden took office in January, and the unemployment rate has dropped from 6.3% to 4.8%, making up for the net 3 million jobs lost under Donald Trump. Of the American Independent brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Democrats in Montana filed a lawsuit yesterday, Tuesday, against a law they say is a surgical attack on young voters in the state. The law, SB 319, bans political groups from conducting any voter identification efforts, voter registration drives, signature collection efforts, ballot collection efforts, or voter turnout efforts for any federal, state, local, or school election inside a residence hall, dining facility, or athletic facility operated by a public post-secondary institution. The lawsuit says the new ban on political activity is a violation of the First Amendment's guarantee of the right to free speech and the 26th Amendment's extension of the franchise to 18-year-olds and guarantee that the right to vote will not be abridged on the basis of age. The suit asks that enforcement of the law be blocked as the suit makes its way through the courts. Republicans in Montana passed the bill this spring, and GOP Governor Greg Gianforte signed it into law in May. GOP lawmakers pushed for the law after youth turnout skyrocketed in the 2020 presidential election. I'll tell you why, because everybody hates a mobbed-up Russian traitor like Trump. A study conducted by researchers at Tufts University found an 11% increase in voter turnout in the 18 to 29 age demographic. You know, in the old days, that would have been astounding. Well, look at this. Look at this increase. This is great. It's great for America. It's great for democracy. You know what it's not great for? Nazism. Nationally, the same age demographic voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump by a margin of, now wait for it, 65 to 31%. The lawsuit, filed by the Montana Democratic Party, the campaign of Montana Democratic Senator John Tester, and Macy Petrini, a 19-year-old freshman at the University of Montana, says the law was passed specifically to limit voting by young people. Rather than celebrate this laudable increase in youth participation, the Montana legislature chose instead to pass a suite of voter suppression laws targeting young voters and limiting their access to the franchise, the lawsuit states. The lawsuit charges that the law is a surgical attack on the successful organizing efforts and increased political power of Montana's youngest voters by targeting only university residence halls, dining facilities, and athletic facilities. The legislature made clear its intent, preventing young, newly enfranchised Montanans from participating fully in the political process, end quote. Montana is one of the 5 states that gained a House seat in the 2021 redistricting process. The others are Oregon, Florida, North Carolina, and Colorado, while Texas gained 2, and the youth vote could be a huge factor in which party wins the new seats. Now, Montana is not the only GOP-controlled state that has tried to hamper young voter participation. This spring, New Hampshire Republicans introduced 2 bills targeted against college student turnout. One that would have banned students using dorm addresses to register to vote, and another that removed student IDs from the list of forms of identification acceptable to vote. Now, neither bill passed. But in July, the New Hampshire Supreme Court struck down a law Republicans in the state passed in 2017 that created extra obstacles for college students to register, saying it imposed an unreasonable and discriminatory burden on the rights of voters in New Hampshire. Well, I guess maybe the court still can decide in favor of democracy after all. Let's get to our break, and it's going to be short, and we will get back from that break and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Can an air freshener kill you? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. You know, one of those tree-shaped thingamabobs that dangle from the rear-view mirror of cars. A majority of states have laws that prohibit an object near a windshield from obstructing a driver's view. But what actually makes an air freshener dangerous is not that it might obstruct the driver's view, but rather that cops can use the air freshener as a pretext to stop the car. Air fresheners, dice, the wrong tin on a windshield, dirt on a license plate allegedly obscuring a number or a letter, a rear license plate light or a tail light being out, an expired inspection sticker or registration tag. There are so many alleged minimal infractions that can be used as a pretext for a traffic stop by an armed police officer. Those low-level traffic infractions, studies prove, disproportionately target people of color, and they should not be handled by police officers at all. The costs far outweigh the benefits. The traffic stops too often lead to an interrogation in order to step out of the car, a pat-down or a frisk, a search, escalation, and, as in the case of Dwante Wright in Minneapolis, a shooting and death. And so we hold these truths to be self-evident. There are too many deaths of drivers and passengers, disproportionately people of color, caused by unnecessary traffic stops. And use of an air freshener should not prove fatal. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2010. That was the day 33 Chilean miners were finally pulled to safety after being trapped for 69 days. Workers had been mining copper and gold 2,300 feet down at the San Jose mine near the northern city of Copiapo when the mine caved in early August. The company waited several hours to notify authorities, and rescue efforts only began 2 days later. Trapped miners initially tried to escape through ventilation shafts, but found the required ladders missing. Each route they attempted was blocked by fallen rock or threatened additional collapse. A state-owned mining company took over the rescue efforts, and soon they began. As geologist Serena Sorensen noted, prospecting for people. Initial exploratory boreholes failed to locate miners because mineshaft maps had never been updated. Rescuers had no idea whether miners were even still alive. Finally, 17 days later, the 8th borehole reached them. The miners tapped on the drill and taped notes to it, alerting rescuers above that they were indeed alive and well. Food, medicine, and other supplies were lowered down to them as rescue efforts intensified. Mini cameras were also lowered down, and miners videotaped messages of their continued ordeal. They told how they continued to search for possible escape routes and agreed to ration their limited food supplies so they could all survive. The first of 3 drilling plans to free the miners began. It was an international effort. The Chilean Navy consulted with NASA to design and construct the rescue pods. Throughout the entire process, rescuers worked to prevent additional cave-ins and rock falls. Finally, the extraction process began, and in less than 48 hours, all miners emerged as heroes.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, and we had quite a bit of rainfall overnight. Foggy conditions are prevailing at the moment. Cloudy skies later this morning will become partly cloudy in the afternoon with highs near 60. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight with a chilly low of 36, and winds will be light and variable. Tomorrow we'll have a few clouds early, otherwise mostly sunny, with highs in the mid-60s, winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County continue to rise. We are now at 224,065 confirmed cases, and deceased have also increased, and we now stand at 297. Pollen is rated as none in the Rogue River proper at the moment. The air quality index for the region is good at 28 parts per million, but wait until they start putting wood in their fireplaces. Hey, that daytime UV index is moderate, though. It has ticked down to a fall level of 3. Barometric pressure is holding steady at the moment at 30.13 inches. Visibility is down to a quarter mile since foggy conditions are prevailing. And the relative humidity is at 100%. Well, you would expect it. We're swimming in it. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 60 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 58 and partly cloudy. Rome is 73 degrees and fair. Kyiv is 50 degrees with light rain. Kabul is 57 and clear. Hong Kong is 78 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 62 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Sydney, Australia is 62 and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 66 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Robert Mueller and Jan Lopatka of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Slovak Central Bank Governor and European Central Bank Governor Council member Peter Kazimir has been charged with bribery but denies wrongdoing and will defend himself against the charges. Kazimir and his lawyer said, "I do not feel guilty of any crime," Kazimir, who served as finance minister before taking the Eurozone country's top central bank post in 2019, said in an email statement that followed a media report that he had been charged. "The state of the facts in the resolution is untrue, and the reasoning itself lacks confirming evidence," Kazimir said. "I do not have any information, nor am I aware of breaking the law, nor did I have any interest in influencing any proceedings." Spokespeople for the Slovak prosecutors involved in the matter were not immediately available for comment. The central bank declined to comment beyond Kazimir's statement, while the Slovak government did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and the European Central Bank declined to comment. Slovak news website, citing several unidentified sources, reported that Kazimir is charged in a case related to an alleged bribe for the country's former tax administration chief, who has been charged in several cases and is now cooperating with investigators. The news website said Kazimir is accused of being a courier who carried a bribe of some $57,625 U.S. related to unspecified tax proceedings to the tax chief. It was not clear from the report where the money allegedly came from.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A journalist arrested in the Democratic Republic of Congo last month for possessing a video showing the assassination of 2 UN sanctions monitors in 2017 was granted provisional release yesterday, Tuesday, pending further investigation, as lawyers said. Thini Kambidi, who works for the Congolese news site Actualite and at times with international news agencies, was arrested 3 weeks ago and told he was being investigated for criminal conspiracy, rebellion, and terrorism. Prosecutors did not elaborate further. Kabidi contributed to an investigation by Radio France International and Reuters in December of 2017, which revealed state security agents had helped plan a trip to the UN monitors or planned a trip by the UN monitors to investigate reports of atrocities in Congo's Kasai region. Military prosecutors have dropped the conspiracy, rebellion, and terrorism investigations, but continue to investigate Kabibi for culpable abstention, according to his lawyer, Code Kabungo, and the prosecutor's written order. Culpable abstention refers to a failure to perform a required act. It wasn't clear what that was. And he was friends with the military monitors, and he had been able to escape in the bush and survive, and they caught him later. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.